This is the third video in a 4-part series on comma usage. This video will look specifically at the use of commas with compound predicates and compound sentences. We will start with compound predicates. A compound predicate is a sentence in which two verbs share the same subject and are joined by a coordinating conjunction, for example, and or but. The other coordinating conjunctions will be reviewed later. In this sentence, pandas eat lots of bamboo all day and are rather bulky. We can see that the verbs are eat and are, and the entity that does and is pandas. So that is the subject. One subject and two verbs. The standard convention is that we should not separate verbs from their subjects, and so in this case, the comma is misplaced. By deleting the comma, the verbs retain their connection to the subject. So the rule is that in compound predicates, a comma is generally unnecessary. Our next example sentence. Conservationists patrol panda reserves for animals that have been injured and educate tourists on the protection of giant pandas. Again, this main clause has one subject, conservationists, and two action verbs that the subject does, patrol and educate. The confusion is caused by the addition of the adjective clause that have been injured, because the educate verb phrase could belong to the adjective clause. This could mean, therefore, that rather than the conservationists, it is, in fact, the injured animals that are educating tourists. The addition of the comma clearly indicates that the subject of educate is conservationists. A quick review. Do not use a comma with compound predicates unless the comma helps to prevent misreading. The possibility of misreading can be caused by the introduction of a second noun that could conceivably function as the subject of one of the verbs, as we have seen in the second example. Now we will discuss commas with compound sentences. Compound sentences are two main clauses that appear in a single sentence. The Chinese government has established over 50 panda reserves in China, but only around 67% of the total wild panda population lives in reserves. In the analysis of this sentence, I will highlight the complete subjects for clarity. We can see the two complete subjects, first, the Chinese government, and second, only around 67% of the total wild panda population. We can also see two verbs, has established and lives, and the coordinating conjunction but. At present, this is a run-on sentence, which is a common grammar error. To make this a grammatical sentence, the but needs to be preceded by a comma. A comma should be used before the coordinating conjunction when writing compound sentences. Some style guides suggest that two shorter main clauses do not require the comma. However, for consistency, I would suggest including the comma in this way. Poaching affected pandas in the past. Its effect has declined since the enactment of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1988. Again, this sentence has two subjects, poaching and its effect, and two verbs, affected and has declined. This time, the two main clauses are separated by a comma. A single comma is insufficient to separate the two main clauses of a compound sentence, and is referred to as a comma splice, which is another common error. To avoid the comma splice, we can add a coordinating conjunction after the comma. The coordinating conjunctions that should be used with commas to separate the two main clauses in a compound sentence can be remembered by the acronym FANBOYS. Moving on to the next example. What is the WWF and how does it help endangered and vulnerable animals? This is an interrogative sentence, meaning that it is a question. In questions, the order of subjects and verbs is usually reversed. To identify the subject, simply produce a full sentence answer to the question. The first question would be answered, "The WWF is." And the second answer would begin with, "It helps." These revert the words back to their standard declarative positions. Now we can easily identify the two verbs, is and does help, and the two subjects, the WWF and it. Although it is a question, the standard rules of compound sentences still apply, so use commas in compound interrogatives when the subject does not appear first. Our final example. Visit worldwildlife.org and you can learn more about the Foundation and its projects. Here we can identify two verbs, visit and can learn, but only one subject, you. The first clause of this sentence is an imperative, meaning it is an order or a direction. With these types of sentences, the subject is an implied you. So again, the standard rules apply. So use a comma in a compound imperative when the subject is implied. A final review of commas with compound predicates and compound sentences. Do not use a comma between compound predicates unless it prevents misreading. Use a comma and a coordinating conjunction between the two main clauses of a compound sentence. Thanks for watching.